Talks from the Crypt.
So I was at this toy show, oddly enough, in the Pasadena Convention Center, which was where we did the Halloween conventions. There used to be, it was called the Pasadena Toy Show. And I went to it, and I remember I'm walking down this hallway, and just as I walk through the doors of the show, I see the very first stand on the shelf was a William Shatner mask.
Wow.
And I saw it, and I knew exactly what it was. It wasn't a Myers, it was a Shatner. And I walk up, and I go, and this was I think it was 95, 4 or 5. And I just go, how much is that? And the guy goes, $100. I go, sold. And I bought it, and I was like, holy shit, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. So I got home, and I called my buddy Darren. I said, dude, you're not going to believe what I found. And he's like, are you shitting me? And I go, no. And he goes, oh man, we should mold that. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, we mold it. We can make copies of it. Because he wanted one. Now, he worked for Henry Alvarez. So he worked on lots of movies like The Thing and Legend and RoboCop and Twilight Zone, the movie. He was mainly famous for wax figures. He did a lot of wax figures. And, he was a very well-known artist. He's no longer with us, unfortunately. But Darren had the knowledge of how to do this. And it was maybe a little more selfish than anything else. He wanted one, So I was like, that'd be cool. So we molded it, made copies, and I was like, I bet you a lot of people would want this, right? So I said, I should sell some of these. So I put a little ad in the back of Fangoria magazine, little tiny classified ad that I don't even remember what it said. It's something like Michael Myers mask from Captain Kirk or something. I don't know. Something to that effect. $60. All of a sudden I got flooded with orders. Flooded. And I was like, shit in my pants. I now got to make all these things.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to. And I had bought there was a company called Death Studios. They were an independent mask company. Anyway, they had a how to make masks the Death Studios way video. I ordered it, bought it, and basically just followed the instructions. And I was making them, selling them.
How long from that point until you're working on the 25 Years of Terror?
Well, my involvement with 25 Years of Terror came from the mask thing. So as I recall, I'm trying to remember how it happened. There was a gentleman who was starting to do the convention, brought in another guy, and I think they reached out to me to potentially be a vendor. So this guy said, look, we're doing a 25th anniversary Halloween convention. Would you like to be a vendor, blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh, wait, tell me more. So he starts telling me, what they're going to do. Because I was big into conventions. I was, a big convention nerd. And I was just like, hey, I would like to help you guys put this thing on, And so we had a meeting. We met at a restaurant. The guy's name was Anthony, another guy named Paul. And we sat down, and I told them my ideas and what I thought I could bring to the table. And I was very connected in the Halloween underground. And they agreed, yeah, let's all partner up, the three of us. So the three of us then pursued putting on this convention in Pasadena in 2003. And then during that process, somebody said, what we should do is we should document this and make a documentary. While we have all these people there, we should have like a side room just like this, all set up with cameras and a background and everything, and bring them in one by one and interview them on camera. So we did. And then from that, the Halloween 25 Years of Terror documentary was born. It was then brought to Trancas and Anchor Bay Entertainment, and they bought it, and it got put out. Now, there was a lot of crap that went on with me after that. Basically, the other two people tried to run with that and not involve me. And I found out about it through Dread Central or something. I saw Anchor Bay acquires Halloween 25 Years of Terror documentary. I'm like, wait a second. I haven't heard anything about this. So I gave him a call. I said, hey, are you going to let me know about this? And they're like, no, we decided you don't need to know, that you don't need to be involved. I'm like, well, that's not how this works, And basically they kind of gave me the, try to do something about it. And I did. I lawyered up and put an injunction on the project, and they were forced to settle.
Well, it's badass you had the balls to do that.
It was principle,
Right. But when you're a young up and comer and you've got these executives in these companies that you really respect, I would imagine that was, a little bit intimidating at the time.
Yeah, I guess. I don't, at that point, I had met Malik and I'd met Mustafa, but I really didn't know them. But, it was just, you can't just decide you're not going to involve someone. And, the only regret I have about it is when it came down to the settlement, it was kind of either take credit or take money. And at the time, I didn't really care about the credit. I needed the money more than anything. And I had just spent quite a bit of money on a lawyer. So I decided to take the percentage and not take the credit. That's why if you look at the document.
Percentage of equity or percentage of sales?
Percentage of sales, yeah.
Okay.
And for several years, got some decent checks. They would show up every 6 months or so. That's long since dried up. But, to this day, I have to tell people, that I was one of the producers of that. If I sat down and told you all the things I did on that documentary, you'd be like, oh shit, but my name isn't on it. They took it off of everything. They gave me some bullshit credit like convention writer. It was some stupid made up thing.
I saw archival footage provider too.
Yeah, something like that. But the reality is I was one of the producers. I was 100%. I brought Rob Zombie into it. And I was the one that interviewed him for him. I brought Clive Barker into it. I'm the one who interviewed him.
Wow.
I remember at the time, this is kind of hilarious. So Anthony, who was sort of the guy who was taking all the credit for everything, he fought me and fought everybody on getting Rob Zombie involved. Like, what does Rob Zombie have to do with this? Rob Zombie has nothing to do with Halloween. He shouldn't be in this documentary. About 2 years later, I looked like a genius. So, and you know what? Quite frankly, I think my involving him in that documentary and him linking with Malik and all that through that ended up spurring him doing the remake. I think I'm indirectly responsible.
Wow.
So,
Well, that would make sense.
Yeah.
What bugs me the most about that is that that's how Hollywood kind of seems to be.
Yeah.
A little cutthroat and backstabby.
Oh God, yeah. And not everybody's that way. Not everybody's an egomaniac.
But a lot are.
But a lot are. It was hilarious to me the lengths that this individual went to get me or to not have me in it. Like literally, I was on stage conducting a lot of the Q&As throughout the weekend. And even in the bonus features, we have a lot of the full Q&As from that weekend. I was on stage doing the Q&A. He went in and pan scanned me out of everything.
Jesus.
So you can't see me. So like if the camera's panning over to when I'm asking a question, it's pulling back to the people sitting there. And I'm actually shocked he didn't replace my voice,
Yeah.
But the big victory at the end of the day was I was in Malik's office and he was talking to me about the bonus features. He says, we need more content. We need some more. Do you have any ideas for, bonus features? And I said, well, there's this thing I do online that's pretty popular. And I've been thinking about doing it in a video format, like a show. It's called Horror's Hallowed Grounds. And I pitched him the episode, like doing a Halloween locations thing. He goes, that's great. Go do it. So I did it. And I remember the shit hit the fan when Tony found out they were putting this episode on the DVD that featured me. After all the shit he went through to cut me out, I now have my own standalone feature that I'm hosting.
Right.
Oh my God. It made him nuts.
I love the story, how that came about too. Like, you only had a couple of weeks to get it done, right?
2 weeks. Yeah. He said to me, he goes, I love it. Sounds great. I need a finished version in 2 weeks.
And you managed to pull the owner of the house, PJ Souls, the owner of another house as well, right?
Yeah.
The Hedge House.
The Hedge House. Well, that was just the day of, knocked on his door and said, I mean, literally said, hey, and he was cool. The guy who owned the house, we had talked to because we were trying to involve him. We did bus tours for the first convention too, of locations. So we had been in contact with him regarding bringing fans by the house. So we had a relationship with him already.
That's good you contacted him. I remember watching a video, and you guys literally took like a double-decker bus. 75 people get off the bus into this like small neighborhood.
We still do that every 5 years, yeah.